Hey, hi, welcome everybody to the third episode of our Everything Product series and the second episode in our UI UX mini series. Uh, we are packing quite a punch with our panelists today. There are two leaders who have been there, done that, and they are always up for taking it up a notch. So let me start by introducing them. So we'll start with Riya. Thanks, Riya, for joining. She is the director of product design at SAP. Passionate product design leader, brings 20 plus years of global industry experience. She has led multidisciplinary teams, as well as large scale enterprise product design programs, at large organizations. She has a passion for, using emerging technologies, really embracing those, utilizing their potential to transform the overall UX. Specialization driving that design innovation, and has a lot of experience in all these cutting edge technologies, right? So, and at SAP, she is leading the intelligence and incubation UX for customer experience. She actively also mentors aspiring designers and widely shares her knowledge and experience. Thanks for joining, Ria, and you guys are going to be in for a treat here. Then Thanks. Coming to Manisha, thanks Manisha for joining. She brings in again, extensive 20 plus years of experience spanning product engineering across multiple domains. Currently, she's leading a practice with very diverse technology teams. They span all kinds of functions, including UX designers, development, support engineers, all of that. And Unbox is the specific UX competency at GS Lab Gas that which is formed with the passionate designers that Manisha is the founding member and she leads that. And her team, helps design, world-class and very practical digital experiences for our customers. They're involved in various stages of the product, including POCs, MVPs, and she has experience in both design and engineering aspects, utilizes that to, have design-led engineering, with us. So as I said, we are in for a treat, very power-packed episode. Thanks both of you for joining. So maybe we can float that first quick audience poll here. Just to get a gauge of, where our listeners are today. And by the way, there is a reason why we have named this episode as the Inseparable Duo, right? Because we do truly believe that it's a partnership that goes deep, beyond just the outside look and feel of the product, right? It's a very deep partnership. So I wanted to really bring that out, and I think no better than the pair that we have today. So yeah, let's see what the audience is saying on that. All right, so quite an even match actually. So I hope that those who are maybe not right now, investing in UI UX or really looking at it more in detail, or they get motivated and informed about that as well. So yeah, thanks for joining everyone. So yeah, let's get started. So Ria, I wanted to sort of start with you. But yeah, before we begin, just a quick reminder. As some of you know, we had our first episode more on UX research, and we are going to be sharing the link for you to watch that. And these two episodes together are really going to give you, a lot about UI and UX both. So yeah, so today, with this panel bringing together, as I said, a deep expertise in both engineering and design, sort of forming the two pillars of creating that digital product, right? So yeah, so Ria, starting with you, please. So, would you outline for us how you look at design fundamentally, first of all, and then if you help do some myth busting around, what design is and what it is not, right? So I thought that could be a good way to start. Thanks.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for inviting, and it's always fun to talk about the different roles, what we are doing in design. So thanks for that. and the introduction. So as you covered in my introduction, I come from a multidisciplinary background, of course, spent time in user-centered design, we call it UX, over 2 decades. So it brought some different perspective to me. So whenever I do or design anything. So for me, definition of design has changed. And again, I feel it's subjective. It depends on what type of designer you are, because that's how you look at design. I was into graphic design, animation. So design was meant something else to me that time. The moment I got into user-centered design, it changed my perspective. And then I felt design is more than actually what you see on the screen or on the canvas or you draw something, right? It is more of a, for me, as I said, like it's subjective and open to our interpretation. But it is also based on your context you're working in. So for me, design is more like a lifestyle, because everything you see around us, everything is design, right? And I think you have to, it's a mindset, the way you do things, the way and why you do things, right? So, for example, even your daily schedule is designed, like you do things in a certain way. And I think this is the perspective I developed over the years as I started working more into user-centered design. So, it is more about how you make your and others' life better by maybe providing, if you're a product designer, by providing the experiences which are more meaningful, which adds value, right? And it is more contextual. It has a empathy. So these are the things which for me is design. And what is not design, and this is something again tying back to the era where somebody in the office used to say, okay, can you beautify this UI for me? So that was the only definition we had back in time for any designer. But things have changed. At least personally, I feel things have changed a lot. Everybody understands the importance of design. And it is no more like just superficial, right? It is deeper at a skin level. So it's not something which is superficial for me. Design is not superficial. It is, if it lacks empathy, it's not design. Because no matter what you design, it needs to have the perspective for whom you're designing, why you're designing. So it should achieve that goal. It should be, if it is not usable, it's useless. It doesn't mean anything to me. So there are products which are there, but it's useless. So we don't use them. It's as simple as that. And then, as I said, like it's if it's not serving my needs or it's not meeting my needs, it doesn't matter to me, right? And also it should be contextual. And this more contextual part, I felt I developed very last few years when as I started actually working more and more into AI/ML. The importance of context is actually became more prominent to me when I started working in that space. So for me, design is not something which is superficial, lack empathy, not usable, not serving my needs, and doesn't provide me context. So that's what is my definition of design.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, very well put. Thanks for elaborating on that. So Manisha, I want to come to you next. From a services aspect, right, how do you overall look at it? And I know that you have a very interesting mix of team members in your teams handling different domains and customer segments. So sort of continuing the line, would you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure, Mandar. Thanks, and thanks, Riya, for passionately explaining about what you feel about design, and I echo your words. And from like Mandar, you asked about how it is in services industry, right? So finally, it's a product engineering, a product being developed or being served, so or engineered. So, but in services, what happens is that we work on different domains. So there are different aspects. There are different domains. There are different products, And also the important part is these products are in different stages. By stages, what I mean is that something might be from scratch being developed, or something is in a phase wherein it is already there in the industry for 2-3 years, and then there are new things which are coming up on top of it, or it is into a phase wherein it is evolved, and then later on it might be into a phase wherein it is going for a large scale adoption. So when you are having the product engineering life cycle in these different areas, and the projects that come to us as consultants in UX and services industry, so we need to have to cater to these different phases of the product, right? So if it is a from scratch, then it might need a lot of research, a lot of competitive analysis, and usability aspects, and who are the users, a lot of study over there. But if it is at a later stage, it could be a redesign or a revamp. And if it is at probably there are products which are there in the industry for 10 years and they have grown over a period of time, and there are suite of products which are developed in a different way. So there could be a standardization needed, right? So when you see that there are these multiple different stages, you also need different skills to cater to such things. So there is research, there is branding, there is theming, there is visuals, there is more on strategy. So underlying every of these aspects is that a designer would, like Riya mentioned, it's important to have an empathy, context, cognitive skills, and some behavioral psychology that is important. And that's why when we have a team for catering to such a wide spectrum, there are researchers, there are interaction designers, there are specialists, and also there are hybrid people who are able to cater to all these different requirements. So from the designer's background perspective, there could be artists who have done their arts in the background, they have done design, they have done psychology, and interestingly, there could be also engineers, right? So who have been UI developers or front-end engineers, and they knew somewhere that they have a passion for user and the psychological aspects there and how users are using the product. So they sometimes shift to design. And having that background and having this mix of team is surely a plus point, and it well caters. It could be individuals working on these different areas and solving the problems, or there could be a combination. So at the end of it, it is a positive intuitive experience that we are giving to the user. So it's the mix of team surely helps.
Right. Thanks. So one for both of you, maybe one funny example that I always wonder about is, how the buttons outside the elevators are used by the end users. Because I still see people, across several locations that I visit, that, they don't necessarily think how those are designed, because there is a picture of that in their mind. So instead of, thinking about, okay, where I want to go and I'll press that up or down, they first think that, okay, where is that elevator and should I bring it to me first? And then they think from that angle. So as Riya mentioned, the calendar, right? So these are some of the things that we use every day. So clearly, that thoughtfulness has to be there. And one positive example that, of course, that I can see is, putting the wheels on our luggage. I mean, we had been using wheels for millennia, right? Before somebody thought of that, we should have thought of that decades ago, at least, if not centuries. So, it's always interesting to look at how these things play together, and, completely resonate with you both about, actually getting into the user's head and really thinking about, why you are doing that. While my examples may be from daily life. So now one can imagine, for complex products, how, detailed the thoughtfulness has to be.
I think add to that, Mandar, it is important that we relate to our daily life, even as a designer. And the examples that you gave is interesting, because I always give this example of Gestalt principles, right, of proximity. In the kitchen and information architecture, in the kitchen, the way we keep the things as per the usage, right? The spices will be together, the certain elements will be together. So that's why I said it's a lifestyle. So you have to inherit all these concepts as a designer, then it comes naturally to you when you're designing it. So that's very important.
Thanks. So we are going to quickly have a audience poll around that. Let's see what our listeners feel. So let's float that one. So interestingly, I see that so probably for both of you, right? I mean, so personally also you guys have done a variety of things, and clearly the teams that you lead also have that mix, right? So it's a diversity that you bring in for each individual as well as the team total together, right? So I think that must be really helping with that collaboration. But let's see what people feel about about this one.
I always say that the team should be like a spice box that we use every day. Right, they should complement each other.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. So it looks like, most of the folks do realize that, it takes several types of thinking also, several aspects also. And it's very interesting to delve into each of those, see the interlinking and see how they affect each other. Right? So it's not only a technology issue or not only, as you said, the skin level issue, but it goes much deeper than that. Hey, thanks everyone for answering that one. So, Riya, so, you have seen both those sides, right? You have seen product engineering as well as design. So how do you sort of maybe peel a few more layers for us and comment on importance of both of those areas and how that close collaboration leads to, a real successful product?
So I would say design and engineering is like left brain and right brain. You can't do without any of it, right? So they have they have their own functions, their strength, and they complement each other as and when needed, right? And this is exactly how we should work. And I have been working with the engineering team. So the one difference which of course I have seen over the period, and again, if you compare service and product industries, it used to be very waterfall model few years back. Now it is more agile, and whether you go in service industry or you go in product organization, it is so fast and it is so agile that you have no choice than collaborating. So I think naturally, because of the way things have developed, you end up working with the different skill set, different cross functions. But then how you make that really effective? Just don't do it because you have to do it. You have to do that collaboration. So, of course, the key players are like, as you had a poll earlier, different skill sets, different organization, different stakeholders, right? And this is particularly, of course, we have been doing when I was part of service industry, but now in product, it's happening more because the way products are developed, there is very easily you can actually each LOB can develop their own stuff, and then because it is developed in silos, there can be a gaps, and that's why it is more important that you work together. So the way usually designers role, or I would say my role have been, is like the facilitator who brings everyone together. And when I say everyone, it is engineering, product management, from design, even research, user assistant. So bring all of them together right from the beginning, so that whatever the goal that we are trying to achieve, everybody is on the same page, right? It's not like product management decides, okay, this is something we want to achieve. This is what is business looking for. Then afterwards, they bring in design in picture, or technology in picture. By that time, there are a lot of other challenges which then product management need to deal with, because something is already committed and the due diligence is not done in advance. So bringing everybody together in the first go, right from the beginning, is the key. And that's what I have been practicing. And that's where I feel design always end up into the role of facilitator. And you may not be the expert. I may not be the expert in product management because they are the domain experts, but I know what business is looking for. I know what users are looking for. I know their pain points. So I think we are in a good position to bring all of them together, and how technology can enable and help us achieve our goals. So I think that is one important skill for us as a designer to develop. Again, as I said, like product management, you have different roles. You have product owners, program managers. From design perspective, you have designers, UX designer, graphic designer, animators. We have content writers and researchers. From technology perspective, if you're working in AIML, data scientists, engineers, developers. So these are the different skills which comes into play. From the different LOB perspective, if I'm a building product which has multiple integrations, it's important that bring them together, because that also helps you understand the technology dependencies, business dependencies, right? Even the design, from the design perspective, alignments. Because many times that also we face the challenge, right? Like a certain product is designed in a certain way, and you design in a certain way, and then how do you marry them when they integrate? So that's why the framework I always use, and of course, not necessarily every time you have to, it's applicable, but design thinking framework, I very heavily use that, which allows you to bring everybody together. Get the approvals and sign-offs at the right times and at the correct milestones. So that is something I have been practicing, which helped me personally a lot when leading products and certain experiences. Yes, challenges are there because certain areas like AIML, it is technology dominant. So as a designer, what do you really do in that space, right? But then, as I said, like as a designer, what I realize is we can bring in that empathy part into picture. So what we need to realize is what value we can add, right, in this whole ecosystem. So as a designer, we can bring in that user empathy. And now I would say it's not just user empathy, it's business empathy also. Because it is equally important that whatever you are building, it makes business successful. So it is not only about users, it is also about business. So, and how do you marry user pain points with the business goals? So that's a very, very critical aspect. And I feel because designers have a visibility to all these aspects, they actually do a good job in terms of bringing this perspective and asking the right questions. I may not, as a designer, I may not be able to give those answers, all of the answers, but at least I will be able to ask the right question, bring the right people who can answer those questions. So that's how I have been operating, and it really helps. It actually helped me. It's interesting that I many times get this question: how many times do you fight with engineering? And my answers, which sometimes it feels unrealistic to people, I never had a fight with engineering. Yes, there are healthy arguments, but I won't call it fights, because as I said, like empathy, when they say certain things, why it is not possible, there is a perspective, there is a reason why they are saying, because nobody is going to object anything because it's their subjective opinion. So as a designer, it is our job to understand why they are saying no. If it's something really technically, it's absolutely not feasible, then what's the other solution? Then how can we think creatively to provide different solution, but still solve the problem? So that have been my approach always. And that's where I personally never ended up fighting with engineering. It's always a good collaboration and conversation with them, and also with the business side. And so that's what my suggestion for other designers also, think from their perspective and explain them our perspective also, which they definitely understand.
Thanks. So really like both of, two of those nuggets that you brought out, right? One was maybe for the leaders to view designers and, engineers as two parts of the brain. I think it's a lovely analogy, so that really tells them how closely they are going to interact and how deep that partnership goes. So it's not sort of, one after the other, or, design cannot be an afterthought. Right? So that really reflects that. And the second one nugget that you mentioned about, how the appreciation for business aspects. So the empathy doesn't really stop with the users, but it's also your colleagues or other business functions and those who you are collaborating deeply with, and not just the users, and how to string together those things. So yeah, I think beautifully put. Thanks so much. So yeah, Manisha, so you have, when you handle again these situations, right? Again, you are leading a team which has this composition, both are there, and finally you are trying to create successful product and provide all the support necessary to that customer, right? So how do you look at what have you additionally seen, and what's your perspective on this partnership?
Right. So as you mentioned that I have a engineering background before. So since the start, when I was an engineer, I had always myself and for my teams, I had always mentioned that whenever you start with something, a project or a product engineering, you start on the features, you need to understand the business goals, basically before getting into a code walkthrough as well, because that is where the engineers jump immediately, right? And for designers, it's a no-brainer. We have to understand that. So the way I consider is that it's the UX role is more about aesthetics, experience. The engineering is more about the features, the technology, and how to cater to the demands of technology. Then from designer perspective, it is the navigation, the flows, empathy, and strategy. And from engineer's perspective, it is when they develop something, it's about reliability, extensibility, scalability, performance, security. So many aspects come into picture, right? So as Riya said, it's a marriage and it has to, be a collaborative effort. And I'm sure when Riya mentioned that she has never fought with the engineers, there would be many smiles in the audience, because that happens, that sometimes happens. And the designer role, the way it has evolved is like, it's graphics, designing, animation, as she said, and then it is more of interaction, strategy. Basically, beyond the look and feel, there is lot many things that the designer is getting into the product roadmap and product vision as well. And then the future evolution is also now that we are having so many tech trends coming in. How to leverage those mindfully is something which is going to go ahead for designers. And you might be hearing that there are different terminologies that come into picture when design and engineering comes in. Is it engineering driven? Is this product manager or product management driven? Or it's design driven? So based on my experience throughout for engineering and design now, it's not driven or it's not forced by any of these three disciplines, but I would say it is design led. And when I say design led, it is not about that design is leading, but it is about the guidance and the direction and the design thinking process that is coming ahead of the engineering. So that is how I see it. And in terms of designers and engineers, there would be the designers need to be aware about the technological aspects, at least some of the aspects. They need to be aware about the UI frameworks that are there, and the component libraries that are there, because that is crucial from understanding the technical feasibility. You do not have to restrict as a designer the creativity aspect, but you have to surely balance and check the feasibility aspect with the engineers. So that kind of a information or that kind of a knowledge is very crucial. In engineering, there could be products, there could be platforms. The way you're developing the technology choices are different. It could be from scratch frameworks like Angular and React, where there is a lot of flexibility for the designer as well. But if you're coming into some no-code, low-code platforms, there are some constraints. So these are the specific areas that the designer needs to be very much aware about. And from engineer perspective also, they need to be attentive on the details or the user needs that the designer is bringing in. Many a times it happens that the designer says that, the customer has liked this design and we want to go ahead with this, and the engineer says that, oh no, it is going to take time. It's important to understand that aspect. So as a designer and as an engineer, both of these roles need to be very much aware about the business perspective and business timelines, budget. There are a lot of things that play in a product engineering when, apart from engineering design aspect, there are other things which come into play. So basically, if you have to make a usable product versus lovable product, so then there are different aspects coming into picture, and there will be some time needed to bring in that delightful factor for the users, or a good experience factor for the users, right? So such things are something which both the roles need to be very much aware of. And creativity and technical prowess balance is the key when you're doing this kind of a collaboration. So while there are constraints, there are limitations, but if each of these roles go a bit beyond their boundaries, I'm not saying that, stepping in each other's roles, but beyond their boundaries, to understand these additional aspects which are impacting a product development and a product lifecycle process, then it will be a really good thing. And for a designer, I'd read somewhere that whatever they create, right? So there are 3 responses to it. It's like design is okay, yes, I liked it. No, I did not like it. Or wow, what is this design? It's a great design. So that is where a designer needs to target their efforts. They may reach there in a while, but that is where they need to target. There are so many things around to get there, to practice these aspects, be aware about the latest trends on design, and get there. And that is how it would be a simpler thing for the entire process. So this is how I see the collaboration beyond their self-disciplines.
Yeah, thanks. I think well put. So, I like how you sort of bridged that point, which Riya mentioned about, them having the appreciation for other aspects. So it looks like, it's really about understanding that how the different pieces fit together, and you are playing a role in that overall puzzle. And it's not necessarily, you can't really have a tunnel vision about, the piece that you are specifically tasked with, but having that broader appreciation definitely helps. I think the long experience that both of you have must have, also aided in that eventually, because some of that appreciation also takes time, right? Because you must have seen a lot of situations. So yeah, meanwhile, so let's float the next poll question for our audience. We are also getting some interesting questions. Let's see if some of those can be taken. We of course definitely have time at the end as well. So yeah, let's see what people thought about that one. All right, interesting. So in fact, most of our attendees are voting for, an engineering solution, right? Which is to upgrade the motors and actually giving directly what the users are asking for, because the wait times are. But I think then the next majority is saying that, hey, we can just add some mirrors. So this is, I don't think there is maybe one right answer, but as both of you mentioned, it's very contextual. You have to really get into the users' heads, what's happening. But yeah, interesting to see that the top 2 answers. So one is probably almost purely engineering answer, and the second one is probably purely design answer. It's an interesting one. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. You can even combine some of them.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Hey, thanks everyone for voting on that. So Riya, you mentioned certain aspects around how designers should have their background thinking process. But let's say how should they or what would you advise for them to look at innovation in general? How can they innovate better, and what are the aspects needed to be at the forefront in general? What have you seen work the best?
So currently, as I lead the innovation and incubation at SAP, right, more from the UX perspective, my role is more about like, what is it that we can build which is unique, or maybe something is not explored, right? And not necessarily every time it has to be something really big. It can be also even the process innovation. It can be something even at the product level innovation, right? Coming up with something new ideas and or building something or innovating something which complements the current portfolio. So I think as a UX person, my role is like, and the reason I'm saying giving my example, because then people can relate, right? Because everybody, as a designer, you are into different roles at a different levels. It's helpful to first of all look at what are we trying to achieve, right? As an organization, when you're innovating, why you are innovating, first of all, what is it that you are trying to solve, right? Whether it's a business goal you want to achieve, whether it's a positioning, right, in the market that you want to help organization support on that, or is it something you want to expand on your portfolio as an organization? Is it something that there is a big issue or bigger pain points that you have noticed from your customers who are using your products, right? Which is a big gap and there is opportunity. So there are different ways why would you innovate, right? And there are reasons why would you innovate. So first of all, I think that's the area we can get involved in the brainstorming with the stakeholders, like why, answering that why. And then the next step is about, once you know why you're doing it, then thinking about what all you can do. So it is about not reaching to one particular idea, but then coming up with multiple ideas, which can maybe help achieve your goal. Maybe it can be business goal, it can be user goal, whatever that you are considering. And once you have too many multiple ideas from everybody, not just designers, then it is about mapping them with the actual goal that you have and actual pain points you're looking at, which is going to benefit your business as well as users. And that's what we call it idea funnel, right? So funneling the ideas and then actually starting, maybe you have 100 ideas, but then actually eventually you select only 5 of them, where you can start innovating on that or exploring those ideas. So innovation is the process which, of course, you have to start with the goal as a team, why you're doing it, what you want to do, what you want to achieve. And then the third piece is like how you want to do it. So then the application of your idea can be multiple ways, right? It can be the physical product, it can be the experience, as I said, like it can be the improvement in the process, workflows, right? So the implementation of your idea can differ based on what you are trying to achieve. So the role that UX can play in this whole process is, as I said, like the facilitate this whole conversation, coming up with a lot of ideas. And as I said, like it is about using the creative thinking, right? Also, when you're solving the problem. So the best part I personally enjoy in this whole process is like when I'm whiteboarding with my team. It is so much fun. Just sometimes those sketches doesn't even make sense. But maybe at the end of the meeting, you find something which is more meaningful, which solves the problem that you're trying to solve. So first, that starting with that process, right? Like, how do you really brainstorm? How do you really sketch out some of those thoughts along with engineering, along with product? That is something is the key for innovation. And of course, like, not necessarily you do this all the time, because then where is the situation where the product is established, you have less opportunities like that, because everything is established. Maybe you are just revamping few features, or you are maybe adding just few features.
Mm-hmm.
So the intensity of this process might be different. But when there is something completely new you're building, this process is very intense. So I think trying out some of these techniques is what works as a UX designer, like whiteboarding sessions with the team, brainstorming sessions. No idea is a good idea. We learned that. So no idea is bad idea. Let it come. So once you have hundreds idea, how do you funnel that? There, then the product management play a key role, even technology play a key role, because, and even I would say UX play a key role, because UX is bringing the perspective, okay, this pain point we heard 20 times in last year from the users or your customers. Product management brings in, okay, this is the feature customer has asked for multiple times. Technology says, this is the feature we lack because of certain availability of certain technology. That's why we are not able to achieve that experience. So you bring together these three perspectives, right? And then you prioritize. You vote on that particular problem. Okay, this seems like a bigger cluster. So let's prioritize this. And as per our backlog, product backlog, this is going to help our product achieve more market share. So you have to tie all these things together, like business, user pain point. And for me, this is what actually helps innovate. The understanding of the problem, and it can be business or user problem. So for me, I think as a UX designer, the role is changing. It's no more about just designing the screens. It is more than that. I think it's more these aspects. How can you actually maturely get involved into this whole process and design this whole ecosystem that you're calling it as a product?
Definitely, yeah. No, I think I love that it's not in a vacuum, right? And it truly needs that contextualization for it to really be fruitful for everyone. So yeah, Manisha. So again, drawing in the same vein, right? So when you have seen that focus on the customer needs, those business needs, how have you sort of seen it play out? Or maybe even you could take some examples as well.
Right, Mandar. So the ROI is the important part here, right? So how design would give a great ROI, right? So Riya has indicated how to get there or how to innovate and get the ROI. But I would just take brief examples that, because there are a lot of domains, right? So there is healthcare, there is fintech, there is hospitality, then music apps are there, and there are some grocery apps, pet apps. So post pandemic, a lot of things have changed. There are many different kinds of users, many of them, everything is getting online. So the way the users are interacting with these apps is changing. So it is said that technology rapidly changes, but probably the people and the culture takes time to change. So the needs are there, needs remain same, but the way the users are interacting with these apps keep changing. So you have to be, as a designer, you have to be very well aware about the nitty-gritties of the domain as well. Like for healthcare, what is important? Healthcare, it's like, that there are patients, there are physicians, the alerting mechanism, the response, it should be very responsive. It should be very easy to understand. The patients could be in any kind of state of mind. Versus when you're working on a financial or a fintech kind of an application, it would be like more on trust, security, because there is a data that is going inside. So there are these aspects, apart from when you're doing a competitive research, these are also small aspects which are important. And that's how the things happen, right? So hospitality, the evolution has happened from just booking a ticket and traveling somewhere to a destination to now a very personalized thing wherein you probably are traveling for some local feeler or a cultural feeler in some specific area. So these are all recommendations and everything coming in, and the users are basically expecting more. The interests are changing. They want to travel, but their interests are changing. The way they want to do many things is changing. So that's where, when you take it a little bit ahead, that's how you need to understand the trends of these various things, and the domain aspects and the user interests. And that is where you will be able to think through and get into some ideas of how to innovate, how to design, and why do we have to do this to increase the user adoption or the stickiness of the users.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. So when we speak of innovation, right? So I'm going to request our team to float the next audience poll, because it's around the aspect of thinking fresh.
Yeah.
It's like an interesting combo, right? I mean, designers want to, of course, innovate, but they will also feel proud that if something that they have designed, when it stands the test of time. So that's why we thought of this question. So let's see what people think about that. I mean, everyone could have maybe their own way of looking at it, but the point is to have them see it hopefully in a new way. Interesting. So in fact, most people feel wheel has really stood. I mean, as an engineer, I thought that wheel has gone through all kinds of course, it's still a wheel, but various modifications of it. I mean, I personally felt that a spoon was something really which was which has probably essentially not changed. Right?
Yeah.
We have tried to make that spork out of it, the spoon plus fork, but barring that, I think we have. But at least that was my personal view. But anyhow, so just to see what people think. So yeah, Riya. So I want to come to you about. So now you couple of times you mentioned the whole AI/ML aspect, right? So again, of course, one of the hottest topics. It's on everybody's mind. So how do you sort of now see that in this era of AI/ML, right? How designers can ready themselves, for that, and align more towards it, and what may be coming, right? So what's your view on that one?
Yeah, I think last 6 months it is little becoming AI ML is like you are every day, every time you are hearing that. I actually got into this space 7 years back when I was like designing the AI ML experience for our sales product. It was very interesting for me because first of all, there is no material which provides you some education from design perspective in that space. Obviously, it is because technology driven space, right? So it was a little challenging for me, I would say, definitely in the beginning, in terms of even what is my role in this whole space, right? So I think I developed that perspective over the period. And again, by doing all these trial and errors, methods and techniques, which I tried using. So one of the framework is like this design thinking framework, which really helped me bring everybody together. And I realized like the role which I can play as a designer is asking the right questions, bringing everybody together, looking at the whole user journey, and where there are opportunities for bringing this new technology. So this is something I realized as I started working with them, because see, again, this AI ML is a very expensive affair. If you think from the business standpoint, of course, I love it when I use ChatGPT, but every time you generate a response, there are some dollars going on, right? You are spending as an organization. So it's not something which you automate everything, right? So what do you really automate? So I started looking into that AI/ML landscape and what actually need to automate, why it need to automate, asking those kind of questions. Of course, I'm not from a technical background. So for me, code is like just numbers. What I try to understand is what is the concept and what are you trying to do and what are you trying to solve. And that really helped me because I don't need to know the code. I don't need to know how to build it, right, from the technology perspective. But I can definitely help my team to bring in the empathy part, bringing the ethics part, bringing the trust part. And interestingly, I was just thinking about it and I was trying to understand, like, what is it? What is AI/ML and what is it that I can bring value to this whole process? So I was just thinking about we as a human, right? Why do you trust someone? You have a good friendship with somebody, right? You hate someone sometimes. So what is it that makes you feel that way? So those are the characteristics of that people, right? Like, okay, somebody is really, really trustworthy because you have all your secrets shared with that person, but you guarantee that that person wouldn't share that with anyone because you trust that person. Another person may be in the same scenario. You said you shared something, some secret with that person, and that person shared it with somebody else. It broke your trust. Somebody you really depend on that person anytime. You know, if you go there, even at a midnight, that person is there to help you. Someone you reach out to guide you, right? So somebody is your mentor. So I just thought these are the characteristics which apply to this technology. We are so much talking about ethical AI, right? What is it? It is all those characteristics, right? So I started mapping these physical characteristics to the digital space and in AI. And that really helped me coming up with some of those guidelines, which we as a team said, okay, is this something we want to agree as a team and stick to this when we are building any intelligent experiences? So guidelines like, or rules like, it should be human-centric. No matter what, it is not going to break my trust as a user. No matter what, it is going to take control of me. No matter what, it is going to do things behalf of me without asking me. So these are the things basically we came up with, which really helped us as a team together. And then the application of this concept or these guidelines is again subjective, right? Like developer or engineering can think about trust from the data perspective, right? Like, how do you store data? How do you really project some of the insights? From where do you get that data? Is it ethical? Do you have consent? Right? So the implementation of these concepts in the particular areas is differs. Now, from the business perspective, again, as it's like, do we really have this data from the user or my consumers, which I can give them certain recommendations? How do we get that? Right? From the designer's perspective, I can bring in, okay, so right now the user actually needs these insights, but currently they have to deal with 10 different applications to get those insights. Is it something I can surface in one click or not even a click? So I think this is the thought process which I started bringing in. And of course, it is a brainstorming. So it's like you start particular conversation and then it unfolds into all these different things. But what I'm saying is basically the concept of applying the characteristics to AI really helped me clarify some of these concepts in my own head. And that's what I've been following. Frankly, so many designers reach out to me asking, like, how do you really design for AI ML? And it's funny when you see something for particularly conversational AI, UI, if you see, there is hardly anything you can design. It's all thinking that you can do. And it is actually depends on which experience you are designing. Conversational AI, you have to really closely work with technical writers or content writers, because it is about language also, right? So bringing those right skills or right people into picture is also another important aspects which we as a designer can think of. So yeah, that's my AI story, and it's interesting. I feel very excited when though people feel scared, but I think finally we are designing those experiences. So human is not going anywhere in this whole equation.
True, true. Yeah, I like that. I think you had mentioned the term, human in that loop, right? So human in loop. So yeah, lovely. So I want to quickly take a couple of brief questions. We have maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. So one is around, the decisions to choose the frameworks. Who should make those decisions, whether engineering, design, maybe. What do you feel, Riya?
So Manisha said one thing, right? Stepping into other space. One thing, we should not do that. Even though I am facilitating, I am not an expert in everything. I am maybe expert in design, but not in business and technology. So letting them come with their own solutions or maybe ideas or suggestions, and respecting and having a healthy debate. So bringing perspective together, giving others space in this whole conversation is the key.
Right. And when you are also dealing with a variety of stakeholders, right? And then there is, time pressure and some other business pressures. How do you typically navigate that? Do you say that, hey, somebody has to have a final word, or how do you look at it?
Yeah, so there is always a governance model, right? Like you always have to have, there are times where it happens like it goes into loop. You are not like getting any answers, but then finally there are timelines already decided, right? You have a backlog, you have to ship something. Then usually the product owners, and this is again differs as per every organization. In product, usually the product owner is the final authority who makes the decision if something maybe as a team we are not closing. So that person is the one who has authority to close and take the decision, considering from all the aspects. So it happens, but then in that case, from my side, what I try to do is at least push or bring in the right people in the picture at the right time, and try to enable those conversations so we can solve that or close that loop quickly.
Right, and there is another similar question, like, after some time, it might happen that we forget what the end user's need was under these all timeline pressures. So as Riya also mentioned, so a bit of an agile mindset over here, and the designers ensuring that aspect of delivering the things, and not only delivering the designs and then developing, but also ensuring the aspect of post development, what kind of user testing is happening and the feedback loop. So that kind of an agile continuous involvement helps so that everyone remains on the track of what the user actually needed at this time, right? So
definitely, thanks. I think we are coming to the close of this particular episode. So yeah, thanks again, both of you, for joining. I really appreciate your very thoughtful outlook about this. I'm sure people have at least begun to appreciate, those who weren't till now, how much it takes, and it truly takes everybody to be on that team and make it successful. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We are going to post the links of this episode as well for you to watch later and to share with your colleagues and friends. And as well as I reminded at the beginning, our first episode of this mini series, the UX mini series, is also available to watch. I think we are going to post the link in the chat as well. So yeah, thanks our panelists again, and thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you so much. It was fun talking to you.
thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Riya.
Bye.